The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter, retold by Communication to You. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits. Their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother under a very big fir tree. One morning, Mrs. Rabbit said, "You may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. I am going out shopping. You may go out and play." Then Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and went through the wood to the baker. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather berries. But Peter was very naughty. He did not listen to his mother. He went to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuce, some beans, and some radishes. Then, even though he ate a lot of food, Peter went to look for some parsley. But all of a sudden, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was very scared. He ran all over the garden. He forgot the way back to the gate. Peter lost one of his shoes in the cabbages and the other shoe in the potatoes. After losing his shoes, he ran on 4 legs. He might have got away if he hadn't run into a net. Peter got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was his new blue jacket with big brass buttons. Peter started to cry. Some friendly sparrows flew to him and said, "Don't cry. You can get out of that net." Peter stopped crying and tried to get himself free. Just then, Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve to pop on top of Peter. Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. Peter rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a watering can. It would have been a good thing to hide in if it didn't have so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was sure that Peter was in the tool shed. Maybe Peter was hiding under a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each one. Suddenly, Peter sneezed. Kershoo! Mr. McGregor heard the sneeze and was after him. Peter jumped out of a low window. Mr. McGregor was tired of running after Peter. He went back to work in his garden. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and shaking. Peter was lost. He was also very wet from sitting in that can. Peter began looking all around for the way home. Peter found a mouse carrying peas and beans to her family. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she couldn't answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Peter tried to find his way home straight across the garden. He came to a pond. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. Peter walked quietly away. He had heard about cats from his cousin, Little Benjamin Bunny. Peter went back toward the tool shed, but then, close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch, scritch. Peter saw Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned toward Peter, and past him was the gate. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter didn't stop running until he got home. He was so tired that he flopped down on the floor and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost. Peter did not feel very good during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea. She gave a dose of it to Peter, 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end.